Cathy Wiggins uses the Longarm quilting machine to reinvent the tradition of tooled leather. Wait until you see what she creates with her signature technique, thread tooling. The Wild West is coming to Quilt It. I have been so excited about this episode, Cathy, because I'm a horsewoman. And so I know what tooled leather is, but how do you quilt it? That's what's so amazing to me.
Yeah, well, I grew up with horses too.
Yes, you did.
I think we share that passion. My dad was a tooler. He could tool leather. In fact, when he passed away, I inherited all of his tools.
Really?
And so when I started working with leather, quilting leather, I decided I wasn't quite sure what direction I was supposed to go in with the leather yet. You know, just hadn't found the groove yet. And so I decided to take my little tools and I went to my local tandy shop to take some tooling classes. And I realized, okay, well, tooling's not for me. I just couldn't do it. Just couldn't get into it. And so I said, but you know what? I can quilt. And I know how to dye patterns and stuff, so I'm going to see if I can create the illusion of tooled leather with quilting, and that's how it all started. Yeah, and so this is an example of a finished piece. This is actually a journal cover, and this is a sample of what I'm calling thread tooling.
So with traditional tooling, they cut the leather out, but what you're doing is you're quilting it down.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
It's the same thing, really. Actually, what they do is that they cut the edges of the images out and then pound it down, and that's how they get their definition. And so what we're doing, instead of doing the pounding, we're using the quilting as actually mashing it down so that your images show up, your elements show up. There's a couple of things I had to change about it. Thread toolers, tooling leather toolers, their whole goal in life is to eliminate as much of the background as they can because they don't like doing that. Okay, and so whereas us as quilters, we like doing the background feel because that's what gives our images and our elements their life, and so we try to emphasize the background.
So interesting.
Yeah, and so that was one of the things when I started out drawing patterns. I had to make it in so it would work with quilting.
Yeah.
And so what I'm going to show you how to do today is how we're going to take this type of leather. This was an upholstery grade leather here. This type of leather and turn it into a thread tooled piece.
Okay.
And then we'll get into all kinds of colors and stuff that you can do with. So we're going to go over the basics first, and then we'll get into some fun stuff.
I know. Wait till you see. Now, do you have a kit for this?
Not yet. We will be. Yeah. By the time this airs, we'll have the kit ready to go.
Okay, great.
It'll come with the patterns. We'll have thread tool patterns as well as the kits with the dyes and the leather, so you can build the kit that you want. So
that's fantastic. That's a great thing for the viewers to know.
Okay, so with the quilting, this is the pattern that I have here. It's just a very simple drawing, and let me bring the machine over.
And the way you got we already did this in the previous episode, showed how to get the design down there, so you can watch that one.
Exactly. And what's really cool is with the background fill that I use, people call it all kinds of things. I call it messy quilting, because literally what you're doing is you're just literally filling the background with thread, and so there's no pattern to it. You're just quilting on top of each other. You're just going. That's what I do. Okay. And so I've stabilized the edge so that it'll stay in place and so it won't maneuver, and left again like we talked about the last episode, so we don't have any stretching out of whack or anything. So the first thing we're going to do is you're going to outline your image that we have, and then we're going to fill in the background. That's really all it is. And what's cool is the background fill is very forgiving because of the fact that that you can use that background fill to cover up any mistakes you may have had when you're quilting around the image itself.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, so it's really, okay, so let me just get the bottom thread up here, and we'll just get going and show you a little bit. Okay, and so what I like to do is I will actually start, there we go, by going around an image edge like this. Okay, and then before I leave this area here, I'll actually go back in, and it's really just messy quilting.
It's not even circles,
It's not even,
pebbles.
I mean, it is just scribbling.
Okay.
And you can use that to really correct any little errors that you may have made when you ran around your image initially.
Yep.
Okay, and I'd fill in that whole area, then I'd go on around, come down.
Did you choose your thread color based on the tooling, the dyes that you're going to use?
Yes, I do. I use, because I know this one is going to have, I use, when I'm working with browns, I will actually use a dark brown threads because it'll go ahead and add more dimension to that background. And this little area here, I'll go ahead and fill it in. And it's just so, it's really is, people get intimidated by this, but with this background fill, you correct any errors that you may have made when you went around tracing that.
So you don't have to be a real good quilter.
No, you don't. You actually don't. And because all of those lines are going to go away anyway after you wipe it off before you start your dyes.
Yep. Well, having just taped the other episode also, it just seems like to me that it's leather, that's what scares us, but it actually isn't scary at all.
There is no difference whatsoever.
As long as you have the right needle.
Right. And you see,
you can really see it already coming to life.
yeah, and you see already how that really pushes down that background. Yep. And one thing I do, like I talked about in the last episode as well, is I do put 2 layers of batting, especially behind the images. I will actually put an extra layer of wool right behind it because you really want that definition to show.
Yep.
And so the quilting part is the easy part. Well, you know, it is time consuming, but to me the fun part is when you start adding the dyes to really give it the character and make it come to life.
Yep. Cathy, this shows all the stages. I love this because, you know, that's easy. I can see already. Yeah. It's a progression.
It is, and I use there's 100 different leather dyes out there, and I have the ones that I use and the ones that I carry on my website that I found that I use, and so and they work best on the leathers that I like to work with. So so these are the dyes that I use, and they're very forgiving. So and this shows a step out. So this is the image that we were quilting. That we just finished quilting it, and this has got the background done. And I usually use 3 color dyes when I'm doing this.
3 different colors?
3 different colors. I use a very light, a medium, and a dark.
Just like everything else.
Right, and this is how I test mine out. I probably have 100 of these little strips. And for each leather that I use, I'll actually test out all the dyes on here, and then I'll mark them so that I'll know, so when I want to do it again, I know which colors I want to use. And so I'll pick out like a light, which would be like the suntan on this particular one, and then and the dark would be like the dark brown, and then something that's in between. You know, depending on what colors you want to go to, and especially working with the browns, some of them are going to lean towards the red color, a rustic color, and some will be more of a true like a warm color versus a cool color. So it all depends on what you're looking for. And every leather is going to react differently to the dyes.
But even every hide?
No, if you stay consistent. That's the one thing too about when you're purchasing, when you are finding leather sources. You want to find one that does have consistency in the hide so that you know that if you order a hide today and you order one 6 months from now and you want to have the same reaction, you want to make sure there's consistency in the hides that you get.
So it's the raw product plus how they process them.
Exactly.
That gives a consistency.
Exactly.
Okay.
And it also, it varies too on what the finish is. If you notice, this one it doesn't have a real, it's like what I call a naked finish. This is an upholstery grade leather. My personal preference for using dyes is an upholstery grade leather. For me, it just seems to take the dyes better than a garment grade leather does. But again, it all depends on what you're going for your end product. Right. But this one has a dark background, the dark brown in the background, and then this has the light color, the medium color, and the dark color to add just a little bit of highlight in order to be able to give it a little bit more dimension in each piece. And then what I found too, especially working with the upholstery grade leathers, see what's amazing, Jody, is that when you're working with leather, it opens up everything that you're used to using with leather in any other discipline. So when I'm working with these leathers, I always finish off the piece with using kiwi shoe polish.
You're kidding.
And you can use kiwi shoe polish. It can be a color if you want to add just a tint of color on it. Or in this case, I use the clear. And so what it does, it gives a protective coat on it, but it also gives a shine.
Wow, it's like a varnish for wood.
Right, exactly. And you can use one coat, 2 coats, as many. It can keep going as much as it is that you want, how shiny you want it.
Wow.
And you probably noticed too, a lot of my pieces have wood grain in the background. My dad was a woodworker. My dad was one of jack of all trades. And so I love adding wood grain with leather. I just think it just adds a nice combination.
It's a good marriage. They go together.
Exactly. And so that so this is a step out that shows you. Here's another one that I did as well that you can see. This starts with it not. This was one of the earlier pieces that I did when I first started thread tooling. I was scared. I was reluctant to have a lot of overlapping in the images and the elements on it because I wasn't sure how it was going to work. And so when I first started doing what I call thread tooling, all of my elements, they didn't touch.
Okay.
And they look fine at the beginning when I first started doing it.
Because you were wow, look what I'm doing.
When I really started comparing what I was doing with the traditional tooling, it wasn't quite what it is I wanted. It wasn't to the level yet. And that's when I knew that I had to really start doing some overlapping, and that because that's what they're good at doing is doing the overlapping. So this is what I'm doing now. It's a little bit later. This is another one that I did, another journal cover. And what this actually. This is using, again, you get to introduce the
hardware, fun stuff.
This was actually just a journal cover that I made. When you're working with leathers, the cool thing with leather is that on one side it's slick, right? And on the other side it's a suede. And so you get to use which texture that you want to use is what. And so this one is actually the flesh side of this leather.
Yep. And so you've got a wrong side that's a right side.
Right.
Or maybe it's one side or the other.
And what this piece actually is right here, that is actually a template for a Tuffet.
Oh, yes.
I had so when I have my Tuffet, my leather Tuffet in my booth, like at the show, right? And they'll say, "Well, gosh, it's the first Tuffet I've ever seen that someone would actually use." And so this is actually a leather Tuffet piece that actually that's what this pattern. This was.
Do you have a pattern for it?
I do.
Oh, great.
Yeah. So this is a leather Tuffet piece. Yeah. So it's a lot of fun. And so then this is a pillow.
Oh wow.
Now one thing I want to show here is if you notice on this one. The definition, the quilting definition is not quite as high.
It's flatter.
It's flatter. And it's because when I quilted this one, I didn't have the extra layer of wool underneath it.
Wow.
But even with that, even though I didn't have that, but the dyes were still enough to be able to give it the definition, so you still get the illusion.
The contrast
right,
with the dark.
Exactly. Even though you don't have quite the volume that you would have if you had the wool underneath
the wool
it.
under.
Yeah, and of course I love fringe. And again, this is all hand punched first. This is all cut with a rotary cutter.
Oh.
Yeah, it was interesting. When I first started cutting fringe, I was asking my leather tool people because they really embraced me. They love what I'm doing.
Sure.
Because it's bringing so much more to the table for them. Most of them had never tried to use a rotary cutter to cut fringe before. They were cutting it with a straight edge and a knife.
But you come from the world of everything with a rotary cutter. That's possible.
And so now I have the tooling guys are actually buying quilting rotary cutters to cut fringe with. And it's been interesting to see how many leather toolers are married to quilters, too.
Oh,
really cool.
yeah.
And this is actually...
Oh, my gosh. A two-sided pillow.
Yeah,
wow.
This is actually hair on hide.
Wow.
And that I put on the back. And, okay, this is what I do for the hair on hide, is I buy a hair on hide rug, a cowhide rug.
Oh.
And so the first time I ever went to Tandy, actually, to purchase the hair on hide rug, I was pulling them out and rolling them out, and the guy says, well, what kind of furniture are you buying? I says, I'm not matching any furniture, right? And I kept going. He left me alone, and I kept on, and he goes, well, what kind of room are you putting it in? And I said, I'm taking it home to cut it up. And he goes, what?
No one's ever done that.
But now they know me. But
yeah, and okay, what's she up to now?
Yeah, but so it was really cool. I was able to use the hair on hide on the back, and so it just adds a lot of dimension to a piece.
Yeah.
This is...
Wow, the back of a jacket.
The back of a jacket.
Oh.
This is also a pattern I have, and it can be the pattern itself has enough give on the outside that you can shrink it to fit whatever size denim jacket that you have as far as but yeah, I love doing the horse images in the middle and change the background here just to give a little bit more emphasis on the horse. And again, this is the same leather and the same dyes. It's just put in a different application as far as the other thing too. When you're thinking about doing the tooling, you want to make sure that the elements, the main elements like the flowers here, are in scale to the piece that you're putting it on.
Okay.
Because if you look at this one on the pillow, so these are larger and the ones on the pillow are smaller.
Yep.
And so that really makes a difference too. You want to make sure that they fit whatever it is that you're going to be putting them on.
Do you get a lot of comments when you wear that?
Yes,
I can't
yeah.
imagine.
Yeah, it's been an interesting thing because most of the toolers think that it's tooled, and then they start looking at it, and I said, no, it's quilted, and they don't believe me. And that's one reason why I did this sample here, so you can see the back, that it is actually actually quilted, and it's not. And it is not tooled.
That says belt to me.
Yeah, yeah. And so then, you can do a lot more than just with brown. You can do colors as well, too.
Oh, my goodness. You keep, exposing all these other layers of this world.
You can't just stop, right? Yeah, so did I say some with the colors? Heavens,
yes.
Yeah, okay.
Kathy, we have to show the viewers this quilt right here. So that's the regular leather without any, just the dyes. It's not the color that you're going to, but that is just absolutely fantastic. And there's also a clue in it to what's coming up, but I'm not saying what it is.
Yeah, this one is actually, again, this is my favorite leather to work with when I'm doing browns. It is in a upholstery grade leather. But that just shows that you can use this texture in pictorial quilts too. You can use it to make, it's very diverse. You can make bags, you can make belts, you can make jackets out of it, but you can also use it as texture in wall hangings. This one also allowed me to be able to use Western style hardware. Those are actually, on that particular saddle there, those are actually real conchos, slotted conchos that you get for saddles is what's on there.
What fun.
Yeah, and because that one is what I mentioned in the last episode, that in some pieces, if they're larger wall pieces, you may want to use upholstery or home deck fabric on the back because it's a little bit more stable. And if that's an example of that, because it has the raw edges, you don't have the binding to hold it straight or to give it stability, and so you need a little bit more stability. You would want to use the home deck fabric on the back or something like that.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, so. Okay.
And so here's a different color.
Yeah, this is gray. This one was a fun, funky one I did with the one that's back here. It's the same fabric that's here. This is also an upholstery grade leather. And what I did for this one is I quilted it in black, and then I used metallic green paint on top of it to paint the background, and then I used black dye to add dimension to the tooling on that one.
Wow.
And then I had a metallic green leather that I was able to use as the piping on that piece.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's a lot of fun. And that's a good example to show you that you don't have to go with Western style things. You can put peace signs in them. You can do all kinds of things in
anything.
them. Right.
Flowers, as you've done, anything.
Yes, exactly. This is a sample. Now this one is done. Feel how thin that is? This is actually done with a garment grade leather.
Like that 2.5 ounce, something like that.
Yeah, yes. And because I wanted to show that you can do it with that leather as well. And so see, what people don't realize that even though, you see the little horse on there, whatever you can make with cotton, whatever patterns you have for bags and stuff that you have with cotton, you can use this leather for it too.
Wow.
So you don't have to, so if you want to make a leather backpack, you can do that if you have a leather, just a regular pattern with it.
And again, more great hardware.
Yeah, and this one, I quilted this one. When I originally quilted this one, I did use a turquoise thread because I wasn't quite sure how I was going to finish it yet. And so, but then I came back and I just used silver metallic paint again on the background.
And took it.
And when they sell leather paint, you don't need to get the leather paint. It's just an acrylic paint. Okay. Any acrylic paint is, but when you are applying paint to leather, you want to do it in layers. Thin layers, and to build your color, because if you put too thick on it all at one time, it's going to crack and peel off.
That would be my fear, that it would flake.
Right, but if you don't, if you build it in layers, you won't have that problem at all.
Another great
and again, so see, you can add fun, funky Western hardware if you want to do that too. Yes, I know, so fun. This one.
Oh,
it's
how pretty.
Another bag. I am not a bag lady. I don't enjoy making bags at all. And
you don't use them, obviously.
No, I don't. Yeah. And I think part of the problem with that is the fact that whenever I'm making something like this, I never use a pattern. I feel like I've got to start and rediscover it all myself. And so this one was one of those cases. But this shows how you can just use a simple leather, one panel that's quilted in a whole bag. Not the whole thing doesn't have to be quilted. You can just incorporate the panel into it. And then again, I use the buck stitch around around the outside, and again, you can use the nice hardware to go with it. Yeah, this one was really cool, and I lined them. You know, you can line it with regular cotton or fabric if you want, but I really like using a real thin pig skin too, because I think it just really adds the elegance to the bag. So that's why.
Well, if you're going to do leather, you might as well go all out.
Exactly right. Yeah, so it was a lot of, that one was a lot of fun. And I found these I found these cuff blanks.
Yeah.
And so I had some extra left over of this, and so I was testing out to see if you could actually just make little decorative cuffs.
Why not?
I know, right? And so I've got some more of these that I'm going to be working on and have them ready for some of the shows coming up. It's a good way to use little scraps, because a lot of times the panel that I quilted is larger than what I'm going to use, and I hate throwing away that work, and so that's just a good use for it too.
And if you were testing out things and something did work,
right,
but it wasn't big enough for something else.
Right. And then this is another little sample. This shows again how you can use different flowers in it. Okay, and this one is also made out of the garment grade leather.
Yep.
And look at this. I'm so proud of myself. I put a zipper in it.
Of course.
No,
like she was worried about doing a zipper.
I had to dig out my zipper foot.
Yeah.
And then this is a corded that I already bought that I
bought it made.
Yeah, bought it made. And I just, again, this was really simply made just like this one, whereas I just quilted one long panel and stitched up the sides, and so it gives a really nice look across the body. And we've got.
It reminds me of something else.
We've got coming up.
Yes. And this is another hint.
And this shows that you can do the same thing with metallic. This is a project that I have that will be on display in Houston.
Which we'll tell you about in a minute.
But this is a metallic that I used. I was using the same kind of idea for thread tooling, but I wanted something to give the illusion of it being tooled silver, actually. And so this is a silver metallic leather that I quilted with black thread, and then I did use a black dye in the background. And what was interesting in this, though, you see that when you put the dye on the metallic, it's not solid. And so
some of the metallic came through underneath
and I think it really adds a lot more dimension to it.
It does. It looks like something a knight would use.
Yes, exactly. And these are actually Swarovski points that are on here. And when you're putting things like this, like crystals or whatever, on leather, you can glue them on, but the glue is not permanent on leather. They will pop off. So you have to actually put rim sets around them to set them into place.
Okay, good, very good tip. Great. Well, shall we?
Yes, I think we should.
Ta-da! Kathy, I feel like I should be calling my horses down from the pasture.
I know, right?
A saddle. A
saddle.
Quilted saddle. And it really is quilted.
It is quilted.
You said that the question you get is, because people have no idea, how do you do it? So you brought us some step-by-steps.
I did. This, first thing I had to learn what the names of all the pieces are on the saddle. This is actually the rear fender, and it goes right there. And so what I do is each component within the saddle, there's like 6 pieces on each side that make up the saddle itself. And each one, I treat it just like I did the other tooling pieces, where I marked it onto the leather, and then I quilted. There it is, all quilted out.
Yep.
Okay, and then I painted the background black.
This is painted. Okay.
This is dyed. Sorry,
that's dyed.
It's dyed.
Okay.
You're right. This is dyed. Now, if you notice, this is quilted, but if you notice, this has got some thickness to it.
And it's stiff.
Because
it's very stiff.
When I had to figure out a way, because I wanted the pieces not to be loose and limber like that, like you would with the other pieces that we had done. I wanted it to have the texture and the feel of a real saddle. And so what I did was, once I was finished quilting it, I took this is a tooling leather, and this is a little bit lighter weight than what they would actually use in the saddle, and I lined the back of it with that.
Oh, that's what gives it this heft, and I can see that in here.
Exactly,
the sandwich.
And then I folded in, and then lined the back with the black on the back, and so that's how each one of the components were individually pieced and made, and then I constructed it on a saddle tree.
A real saddle tree.
A real saddle tree.
Wow.
Yes.
And on your blog, you have the step-by-steps. You show how you do it.
Right.
You've shown the process.
Yes, I do. Yes, I have. And
Is this a real saddle? Could this be used?
This one could not, because it doesn't have all the undercarriage necessary for a horse to ride. And another thing too with saddles, these are more presentation saddles, and because saddles, as you know, they need to be fitted to the horse itself.
Absolutely, positively.
Yeah, could one be made for a horse? Yes, absolutely. In fact, I've actually been contacted by a couple of real saddle makers to look at designing some new techniques and stuff for them to be able to incorporate some of the pieces that I'm doing into that.
Oh, that'd be wonderful.
Yeah, so it's really cool.
Wow, wow.
Right.
Oh, neat. Then you don't have to become a saddle maker yourself, a real saddle maker.
Right, exactly.
Now, everything that you've told us about is in your book.
It certainly is.
Yep.
There's even a chapter on the construction of the saddle itself.
Oh, there is, because I thought you completed the book before you started doing this.
No,
So
actually, because I got a little Bentley, the leather horse, which you'll see him, and I actually got a little leather horse statue that I made my very first saddle for him, and that's what's in the book.
Great.
Yeah.
Now, Cathy has something really amazing coming up month after next.
Yes.
You have a solo exhibit at Festival and Market in Houston of
12 saddles, 12 quilted saddles.
And just quickly, what are some of the themes of the saddles?
Oh, that's been the fun part. The first couple of ones are traditional. The very first one is a traditional Western brown saddle, then the red one, and then they went crazy after that. I've got one that's a dragon saddle that actually has dragon wings on it. I have a plantation saddle. I actually have a side saddle that'll have three-dimensional roses on it, so it's going to be something for everybody.
You know what's so fascinating is I've been interested in side saddles because I'm a reenactor in the period, and she went in and did all this research to learn all about them. It's just fascinating, the roads you've gone down.
Yes, it's been fun.
How can people find out more about you?
I'm on Facebook, on Instagram, and under Gypsy Wood Leathers. That is what my business name is. That's where we have the kits, we have leather, anything that you want to do with any. One of the cool things is I've realized that people like to have little starter kits.
Yep.
And so we have a whole variety of starter kits. And so the kits have absolutely everything in it that you want if you want to give it a try. But that's at gypsywoodleathers.com.
Great. Thank you so much, Cathy.
Thank
This is
you.
amazing.
Thank you.
And good luck with the exhibit.
Thank you.
Great, Cathy. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
It was a blast. And thank you for watching Quilt It, the Longarm Quilting Show. We'll see you next time for more great quilting fun. It's amazing the photographs that you have in here. So much information.
Handy Quilter, designed by a quilter for quilters.